Welcome to another East Tradewinds presentation with Mitch Weisburgh.
For your own business, if you have people reporting to you, you can go over them with the people who report to you. You could use them as coaching for your clients, and that maybe they would be of help. And so these two resources are actually material that comes from, well, my second book, which is volume 3 of the Mind Shifting series, which is Mind Shifting, Conflict, and Collaboration. And that book is all about how do you deal with situations where you either know in advance this is going to be a conflict, or you get in the middle of it and you start conflicting with somebody. And, our natural instincts are to kind of roll over the other person. That never works in the long term. So how do you get yourself out of that mode, um, into a mode so that you can move forward one way or another, either with them or without them, but without. These are a couple of resources that are based on the material of the book. So this is the resource, but so you can download it. So I have a series of toolkits for different types of situations that could result in conflicts. And this one here is the customer service conflicts. And so that's number 4 here. I'm also going to go through the workplace conflicts one. And the other ones will be up on our website. But basically, when you're involved in a customer service conflict, the first thing that you should do is this mindset shift. And the mindset shift is generally when we're in a place where a person is kind of demanding more resources from us, or they're upset about something that we did, or they want something for nothing that you think they should pay for, maybe you messed up, is our first instinct would be to explain something, to defend something, or to fix something. When we're dealing with somebody who is triggered, who's in their, I guess, saboteur mindset, they're not ready to hear solutions. And when we're triggered and we're in that survival or saboteur mindset also, we're not able to reach out and connect with them. So the first thing to do is to understand, hey, wait a minute, I'm frustrated also, to step back and to trigger our own curiosity about the situation, because if we're genuinely curious, then we're much better able to listen and move forward. So the first is to get into a curious mode ourselves, then to ask questions which lead to an understanding. When we're asking those questions and the other person can see that we're in an understanding mode, they tend to gravitate towards resourceful mindset because they're building trust in us, and only then to move towards resolution. So those are basically the steps to cover when really when we're in any type of a conflict situation. Awareness of ourselves, transforming our own mindset to one of curiosity, moving so that we start asking questions and trying to understand what the situation is by satisfying that curiosity. Those questions and that attitude then build up trust from the other person. We have the trust and connection with the other person, then we can move forward towards resolution. So, so this guide then is looking at different types of situations. And once you're in that curious mode, giving you some tools, or giving the person you're coaching some tools to be able to ask those questions to reach and understand and establish those trust. So when you sense that a customer is angry or frustrated, okay, your goal is to help them feel heard before you attempt to solve anything. So questions such as, I can hear that you're frustrated right now. Can you walk me through what happened? Or, well, okay, this is what happened. Can you tell me what you were expecting to happen? And then how did this affect you? And then what would make this right for you? And you can just see, or you can hear in the tone of the voice, that when the tone of the voice is coming through as curious, it ignites that in the other person. Whereas, if you were to say, well, what did you expect to happen? That's fed from the standpoint of our survival brain. We're triggered, and we're triggering them. But what were what were you expecting to happen? With a curious tone of voice gives it a completely different effect. And why these work is because they show that you care about them, and that you're not just closing the ticket. And once the other person feels heard, their brain shifts from their own fight mode to going to problem solving mode. Because ideally, what you want to do is not me or you versus this other person. What you want is you and this other person taking a look at a problem, trying to solve the problem together. So those are questions that one could ask when a customer is angry or satisfied, or frustrated. I'm gonna maybe I'll just stop for a second right now and to just get some actions to either these 4 steps here or the types of questions and the tone of voice for the questions. Anybody have any thoughts as I start going through that?
My sister works, for an electric company in California, and I'm thinking of her because she gets angry customers all the time, and I'm like, "Oh, she could benefit from the lines like, "Oh, well, what were you hoping, would happen next?" And, "What were you expecting?" And, yeah, I like those kinds of questions. I think it makes sense, and the tone of voice and the curiosity and also what you were saying about not immediately going into defense mode, but just to go into the understanding mode. I think these are great.
So these are free, so you can pass them out and you can give them to anybody. And Wayne,
I really like what you've done here. Have you been able to find a way to go from the knowledge of it, I see that, into mindset so it's integrated even when you're not in the book? Or how do you make them live their new life?
so that's I wish I had a really simple answer to that because it's a great question. I will say that, and this really more comes from the first book than this book, this answer. But when we're in the moment, in all likelihood, we're reacting from our survival brain, and we don't have time to really step back a lot and really think. And so being in the moment means that we have access to the things that we already know how to do. Given that, we can add to those things that we're fluent in. So if we know that we're going to be in a situation with a person, to think through that situation and come up with some things and the attitude we want in advance and kind of simulate it and practice that puts those actions and those skills into what we might call our muscle memory or into our limbic system so that we have access to them quickly. It's thinking about the situation in advance, thinking about what the issues might be, coming up with possible things that we can do and or say and what our attitude should be, and then practicing those so that they become second nature.
Oh, Mitchell, I love this work. My perspective is from the nervous system that the amygdala has already been triggered,
Yep.
and now you're in survival, right? So the prefrontal cortex is already shut off. So our ability to come into a thinking state is really compromised, which is why we're in survival and fight. So the curiosity state, which is so important to get to, that comes in the parasympathetic state, and that's only comes when we are safe, which means
Darn it, Sharon, when I say you're supposed to be relaxed, you're supposed to be relaxed. Why
I
can't you do
know.
that?
Calm down. I have a thing. No person ever calmed down when they were told to calm down.
Right. No, perfect. Exactly. Go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, that's all I wanted to input. So thank you.
Okay.
I love your work.
Thank you. And so just in all seriousness, and of course, you're 100% right. When we're in the moment, we're in our limbic brain, we're in our survival brain. Our emotions are flared up. And part of what one has to be learn how to do is to recognize when we're in that and to understand that once those stress hormones are flooding our brain, it takes minimum 60 to 90 seconds to get flush them out of the brain. And so to be able to say, well, wait a minute, something I'm getting riled up right now. If you can, let me take a time out. Let me talk about something that doesn't get me riled up so that I can so or maybe start asking myself some questions like what would make this fun or what do I really want to get out of this, and questions like that will naturally start activating the prefrontal cortex. But it's not those are possibilities, but there's no one thing that's going to work all the time, as you know. But thank you, Naomi.
Many, many years ago, I used to work in customer service. That was kind of my first real job. It was in Ireland, and I worked with Danish, Swedish, British customers and everything. And we got all the angry customers. And boy, I wish I knew, I known this because the company wasn't prepared to have any
Right.
kind of
any kind of training to solve this problem. So we did our best, obviously, and that wasn't always the best, and sometimes you got upset, and it took you so much time, yeah, again, just to reset your nervous system after a very nasty call, because it's not easy to take those calls, and it's not against you, and you know that, but it's hard not to take it personally, of
Yeah.
course. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. And when people are having those reactions on you, it takes a toll. I would say, your point that we have to do something for ourselves to get ourselves back in a feeling of equanimity, calm, and feeling good about ourselves after that is so important. I did want to scroll because there's other types of situations and questions. So I don't think I'm going to go through every one of them, but I wanted you to see that there's other things here. But Kenneth, go ahead.
I love what you're doing here. I teach a management class for service managers, and one of the things that they always have to deal with is unhappy customers. And there's a couple of things that I teach them to ask is, first of all, is when the customer's venting, say, and what else?
Well, perfect. I love that. Yeah.
And you just keep saying that till there's nothing left. So you've gotten all the pressure out of that pressure cooker. And then the other one is I love this one is, what can I do to make things right for you?
Right. Yes, I
Because then
like
you
that.
know what they want, and you can also at that point in time typically decide if they're going to be a reasonable customer or an unreasonable customer.
So, I have a question about that because my first thought about hearing that is that if you ask that question too early, then what the person wants is probably something that can't be done, and and they may be insistent on it. And so, if you could ask some other questions first, like and what else, and let them calm down, then maybe that would be the time to ask the question. Or do you think asking the question really early in the conversation that there's different ways of handling it?
I would say maybe a little bit later in the conversation after they've gotten their steam out, but it starts to give you a picture of where their mindset is, especially when you're dealing in like physical repair work, where I need to send a technician back out to fix a piece of equipment. Even if the customer tells me they want a brand new machine, which is an unreasonable request, I will tell them that this is what I can do for you today. Let's see if we can get your machine back up and running, because it'll take some time to make a decision on whether if we're going to replace the equipment or not. And
Mhm.
then if you can fix the equipment, usually then you can ask, you'll find out that now they're reasonable and they're okay with where they are. The ones that keep saying they want a new piece of equipment, and if you want a new piece of equipment, they make it very clear they're unreasonable, and then you have to figure out a plan to deal with that.
And I'll tell you, as a person who's been on the receiving end of customer service, the question I really love is when they say, is it plugged in? Is it on? It's like, yes, it's plugged in and it's on. That to me is like, I hate that. And you get it every single time. But yeah, well, thank you, Ken. And Adam, I think you were next.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked in really top end restaurants in London for 10 years and ended up training the people how to deal with this sort of behavior. But what our
Yep.
approach was from the receiver of complaints or unhappy customers was always to frame it in our own minds that this is feedback. And
Right. Yep.
it's really important to take on board that complaints are feedback. It might not be great feedback, it might not be pleasant feedback to receive, but it's
Mhm.
valuable feedback, because
Mhm.
for everybody who complains in a service-based industry, there are probably 5 to 10 more who just vote with their feet and never come back. They stay silent, they leave. And so when people complain, it's really valuable feedback.
And if somebody can keep that in mind, that also gets them much more in that curious frame of mind, which allows them to connect with the other person. That's brilliant. Great. Thank you. And Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Mitchell. Yeah, this is very relevant. Just something happened last week where the company I have that delivers vegetables on a regular basis, we normally will cancel. They have auto shipping, which I never understood.
Hmm.
But they said just make sure that you cancel it before the date. Well, we got busy. We didn't cancel it, and they sent everything that we didn't like. And so it says like we've never ordered black radishes. We've never ordered various products. So we just talked to them, and it's like they didn't listen at all. It's like, well, we have your credit card on file, and that's just the way it is. It's auto shipping is what we do. I understand, but the model doesn't work for me. So I forgot. So anyway, they gave me a little bit of a credit because most of the stuff I had to give to neighbors and friends and stuff. But then it got to the point where I left the baskets at the door when it was time, and the driver was supposed to drop off one basket and then take the empties. Well, he didn't take the empties, and the company blamed me.
Of
And
course.
the fact
Right.
that they didn't, so they weren't listening. So finally, I said, "Okay, I'm just going to cancel the account." And I couldn't talk to anybody, so I had to do the AI bot. And so I said, "I just want to cancel." And they said, "We'll be with you within 24 hours." That was Thursday. So, when
Wow.
promises are made and then I'm just waiting here, it's like you said, if you feel you're not being heard and nobody cares, it's like, I don't know why I deal with these people. But yeah, these are good points, Mitchell.
And, and to get the perspective on the person on the other end is really important. So thank you. Thank you, Tony. Yeah. And Joseph.
Yeah, great presentation, Mitchell, and so many relevant questions and points there. And just one I wanted to touch on, even when it feels personal, even when they're really fired up, it's rarely personal. It's just they're coming from where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And our tonality makes such a big difference. It took a lot of practice, but I had to learn to keep my tone softer. And then so often it's made a difference when I've just slowed the rhythm down,
Mm.
because they're often so fired up and they're speaking so fast and it's just pouring out of them. But when we slow it down a little, slow the pace down gradually, it takes a lot of the steam out, even separate from the questions we ask and how we ask them.
Those are two great points. And the slowing down of your voice I mean, it's just fascinating to me because, we all have these mirror neurons. All mammals have them, but people have more than other animals. And we have this drive to copy and mimic the other person. So these mirror neurons, when you're speaking in a slow, steady voice, the other person has this urge to mimic it and do the same thing. And then that calms down their parasympathetic system, and they start matching you, and you have the connection, and you can get back into that mode where it's you and them trying to solve a problem. And I see that, Percy, you have a question too. So one thing that I'm going to do is I just want to take a second here and put the other URL into the chat so that you have it. Oh, and I see Sharon, you mentioned the mirror neurons also, and yes, and the vagus nervous system also. That's good co-regulation. So just the second one was, and I don't think I'm going to actually go through that, but I think that, you'll see it's very similar to the first one. Is the first one was customer service. The second one that I was going to show was the workplace conflicts. But if you see, it's this, it's the same pattern, and the same goal, very similar goals. And then the questions are different because the situations are different. Is download. But Percy, go ahead.
Thanks, Mitch. I ran a help desk for 20 some years, and I found that I was the second level. So they'd already explained their problem to the first person. And so I would get the call to say, "Hey, I can't fix this. Can you take a look at it?" And so when I call back the user, it was like, you know, I already told the other guy. I get that, but he used his voice to tell me what was wrong. I need to hear it from you so we can actually identify the problem.
Oh, right.
So that kind of calmed them down. And the other thing I would do is if I had to do an on-site, I would look around and see what else needed to be fixed. Is there anything else? That keyboard looks terrible. We're going to replace that. I can't believe you're using this mouse. It hardly works. We're going to send someone up to you. And by doing that, you developed a little bit of credence for the next call because you know they're
Mhm.
going to come.
Right.
And,
Right. Yep.
a lot of times it's, I understand the problem. How would you like me to help you?
That's a great question.
Because I
Uh,
can't get where you want to go, but I need to have enough information so we can move where we can.
And then, just and along those lines, you mentioned finding other things that you could fix for them. So you're kind of going beyond and you're forging this relation, and something not exactly the same, but somewhat related is to be able to talk to them about things that are interesting to both of you. So if you look around, if it's person to person and you know that all these pictures of cars, to be able to ask them, "Oh, wow, I see you have a lot of pictures of cars," getting them to think about something else and talk about something else, that kind of distraction also flushes those stress hormones out, establishes a connection so that you can go back to discuss the problem, which is
Ab-
another
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. And if you
and
can,
I'm looking, yeah,
if you
go
can
ahead.
remember a few details like that, like how many kids they've got, what kind of age they are. You can start that conversation while you're trying to fix the problem. Lowers the temperature.
Yes. Yes, and that's what you're trying to do initially is lower the temperature. And then I see from Sharon, Charles' central vagal nervous system is built. We're not with one by caregivers' nervous system. It's called co-regulation. And that co-regulation part is like so important because very often, even with adults, they're not necessarily capable of calming themselves down, but doing things like Joseph brought up, slowing down our voice, talking to them in a curious way, we're kind of co-regulating with them and helping them calm themselves down. If you grew up in an environment where you did have caregivers who could do that for you, then you're so much ahead of the game. So if you have questions on any of these, feel free to reach out.
We thank you for watching. We meet every Tuesday between 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern. There is no cost and an option to become a speaker too. Find East Trade Winds on LinkedIn.